Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvina Vaditamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om, may the Divine Being look over us lovingly as a mother and father. May the Divine Being support and nourish us as a mother and father. May we have the strength and skill to study together the art of spirituality. May no misunderstandings arise amongst us. Om, peace, 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 and thy blessed beneficence be unto us and to all beings everywhere. Brahmadas, could I ask you to turn down the volume on your laptop just a little bit? I'm getting this 10-second delay. Thank you.
Okay, how's that?
That's very good. Thank you. Om Hari Om. So, good morning, or good afternoon, I should say, everyone. Namaste and welcome to our reading and discussion of Patanjali's Yoga Sutras as presented to us by Swami Prabhavananda and Christopher Isherwood in their book, How to Know God. Now, as you can see from the title, How to Know God, Swami Prabhavananda quite accurately presented Patanjali's Yoga Sutras as a how-to, a workbook on how to know God. And so we're well along in the book. Jeff, our reader, will tell you where we are. But before we begin with any new reading, is there anything that remains in your mind as a comment that you'd like to make about what we've studied so far, or anything that you would like to raise as a concern or question based on what we've studied so far? We're in the third chapter, the chapter on powers. All right, dears. Well, Jeff, if you'll tell everyone where we are and then begin.
Certainly, we are in the world of duality. That's where we are.
Okay.
In the book, in the book that most of us have, it's page 196. Like you said, brother, it's chapter 3, entitled Powers, and we're about to take up Sutra number 23.
Sutra number 23. Just to remind you about the Vedic numerology, the number 5 is a number of sudden change. Sudden change. 6 is a number of predictable change. So just notice as we read 23 and 24 how that is implied. Patanjali was a scientist and did not ignore Vedic numerology. This is something that came to my attention over time as I studied Prabhavananda's book, that the numbering of the sutras was not random. It followed very closely Vedic numerology. So number 23, 2-3 adds to 5. And so this will be a number portending, gesturing toward sudden change. Jeff?
Sutra 23. By making samyama on 2 kinds of karma, that which will soon bear fruit and that which will not bear fruit until later, or by recognizing the portents of death, a yogi may know the exact time of his separation from the body. I'll repeat number 23. By making samyama on two kinds of karma, that which will soon bear fruit and that which will not bear fruit until later, or by recognizing the portents of death, a yogi may know the exact time of his separation from the body. Portents of death include various physical and psychical phenomena, together with visions of supernatural beings. It is better not to be too explicit here, lest the reader should alarm himself unduly. With an exclamation mark. Hindus believe that it is very important to know the exact hour of one's death in advance, because the thoughts one is thinking at the moment will to some degree determine the nature of one's afterlife. That concludes the commentary.
All right, any comment from your own wisdom or experience about these things, or any concern or question that raises? And certainly the time of one's death, or one's death, is definitely a sudden change and very dramatic change. So this is what I was gesturing toward by saying there is something to the number 5 or 23.
Brother Shankara, this. Okay.
Oh, go ahead, McKaylee.
Okay.
I'll go after.
Well, I would say that it also correlates to in the Bible where it says, as a man thinketh, so he is. So it's saying that where you go when you separate, your body separates, is according to your thoughts. So keep it positive.
Precisely. We were just studying that in another class about how important it is to keep your mind focused on the divine at the hour of death, because then you will then merge with the divine. But whatever it is that you've been thinking about pretty much continuously or predominantly will be what appears in your mind at the hour of death, and that will determine the quality of your afterlife and perhaps another birth.
Yes, thank you. That's why when I see these, as you were discussing, when I see these near-death experiences, it makes me now, as I step back and look at it in all the different books, it makes me realize where that person's thought was prior to that experience, because each book or each story, even if they come back to the physical life, is according to their thought level.
Exactly. The work that they need to finish.
Correct.
So they are in a sense reincarnated. They are in a very real sense reincarnated. They come back into their body, having their consciousness separated from their body for some time.
Correct. And then that would be their classroom to be able to take them to a higher level, because it's all coming from thought, right?
Yes, exactly. But they also often not just learn, but they also sometimes serve as teachers. Amy Call certainly does, although she doesn't make any big deal of it.
Thank you, Brother Shankara.
She doesn't market herself. She does have a website too. She does have she tells her story in more detail on her website. Cindy, did you have something? Thank you, McKaylee.
I do. I realize we're reading Patanjali and not Sri Ramakrishna, but I do have a question about the idea of, what you're thinking, where your thoughts are when you're leaving your body are going to have an effect on what happens to you when you leave your body, when you die. But there's the talk when we're talking about Sri Ramakrishna, about the promises that, no matter what, it happens or you're thinking about, that you're going to achieve liberation if you are a devotee of Sri Ramakrishna.
This is the promise. It's unqualified. And if you are a devotee and a sincere one of Sri Ramakrishna, it completely how thorough and careful you were before death will be swept away, in a sense, by his sweeping away all of your karma and unchaining you and setting you free. This is the purpose of this incarnation.
Right. Right. Well, my question is this. Is the promise, that sort of promise from Sri Ramakrishna, a new thing with Sri Ramakrishna, or is it just a different reading of devoteeship, different from Patanjali?
Come to
Do
me.
you see what I'm asking? Do you see what I'm asking?
Oh, yes. Come to
Okay.
me, all ye. Come to me, all ye who are heavy laden. Come to me, all ye who are weary and heavy laden, and I shall give you rest. This is Christ's promise. This is Christ talking about his salvation. He said, those who drink from my mouth shall not taste death. And so, no, this is not new with Sri Ramakrishna. This is the promise of the avatars. It is also promised by Krishna, not so much directly in the Gita, but it is in the Srimad Bhagavatam and elsewhere that Krishna has this capability and wish. But this is what he means when he comes to save us, when he says that in the Gita. He comes to save us from our karma. And he says, those who turn to me in devotion, I see no sinner, and holiness itself shall transform you. And that transformation will then lead, of course, on to this auspiciousness at death. That's the understanding from here anyway. And thank you very much, both Michaela and Cindy, for making these points. That's exactly what Patanjali is gesturing to here.
Well, okay, just to be clear though, because I'm still not clear from your answer. I understand you said no, it's not new, but the promises from the avatars are basically, they're saying about what we just read from Patanjali. Oh, don't worry about that.
Right. Patanjali's workbook is for those people who are not devotees of an avatar.
Okay. Just wanted to be clear about that.
And it is so he does suggest devotion to a personal God, but he doesn't speak about incarnations. And incarnations are not within the Sankhya philosophy. For that matter, neither is a personal God. But certainly no incarnations are there in Sankhya, the framework from which Patanjali put together this workbook. So he's not talking about that. But the incarnations definitely have and use this power on our behalf.
Brother Shankara, this is
Yes.
Haima. I just want to add something to all the wisdom of others in the book. Sometimes when people die, the star is also important. At the time of the death, we have these nakshatra, what we call. The priest looks at it at the time of the death. And then in case of my mother's death, that room she died had to be closed 1 whole year it has to be closed and locked. Nobody could go into that room. And then 1 year later, they had to perform a puja, like, all the austerities and by the priest, and then open the room, clean the room, and start using that room for
Well,
some reason. Yeah.
this is priestcraft, dear. It's not
Yeah.
anything we know about.
I-
I'm
yes.
not saying there was anything mistaken or wrong about it. I'm
Right.
simply saying I can't comment at all
Right.
because what these priests know and do comes from an entirely different. It's entirely karma related.
Karma related.
It doesn't have. You can see
Right.
it was all about action. It was all about something that was present at the time that your mother left the body, and
Uh-huh.
that portended this closure of a room, locking it, no one goes in.
No one goes in.
And at the end, the priest has to open it, perform a puja, and then so on, and the life can go on.
That's right.
This is priestcraft,
Uh,
and as I say, it's
they still
no
do that in
judgment
India.
from here. There's no judgment from here one way or the other. There's
Sure.
simply no way I can comment on it.
Yeah.
Brother
Just-
Tara,
Yes,
I-
dear.
I say something?
Yes, of
Okay,
course.
so that is ritualistic because everything is created out of thought, and then thought becomes things, particles. So if that's your belief system, then you make it into a law onto yourself. But if your thought system is that my mother passed away and I'm going to clean the room, but I don't have to wait a year, then that's all right too, because you didn't accept the other law. So I would say it's somewhat ritualistic to believe
Well, that
that.
is what priestcraft is, dear.
I
Priestcraft
think so.
is by its nature ritualistic. That is
Yeah.
the nature of priestcraft. And so, but if you are in that culture, and as Haima was and is to a degree still, then you will accept what the priest says because they. Oh well, like I say, I don't want to comment on what priests do and don't do because I really don't understand that much about it. But it isn't that what you said is wrong, Michele. Of course, if you don't accept the conventions or law as you call them, then you don't need to abide by it. What will happen as a result may or may not happen according to the wisdom and knowledge of the priest. Thank you.
Shankar?
Yes, dear.
As far as rituals are concerned, I think that some people find value in them and some people not so much. And it's my understanding that we, as students of Ramakrishna Vedanta, are free to choose what rituals we want to do or not, aside from the instructions we receive at initiation, which naturally we are compelled to do. But otherwise, it's up to us whether we want to do additional rituals or not. Am I correct?
Yes, but in any individual instance, I would take this up with your guru. If you decide you do or do not want to do something, it's always. I used to talk about everything with Swami Swahananda. Everything, anything I did with regard to spiritual life, and for that matter, much of my work life and home life, I discussed it all with him because it was very fruitful. What he had to say was always um, right on point and very worth listening to. So this is why I suggest any decisions you're making about what to do or not do after you've been initiated, take it up with your guru. And it isn't that you're not free to decide. Of course you're free to decide. But your guru may have some words of wisdom. That's how it seems from here anyway, Jeff.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else from anyone? Well, I think this is productive. This is exactly what we hold a class and study the art of spirituality together for, is to share these things. So anything further about Sutra 23?
I just think it's interesting that he mentioned supernatural beings and nobody's interested in that.
Well, we have no idea what he means, dear. I mean, we don't know what he means by supernatural beings. So how can we be interested in it and want to pursue it? I have no idea what he means. According to the scriptures, there are very, very auspicious supernatural beings, and there are extremely terrible and inauspicious supernatural beings. That's about all I know about it. So thank you, Glenn. Yeah, it is interesting that nobody wanted to pursue it, and I'm glad in a way because I would have nothing to contribute.
So just to give Glenn's question some clarity, I'll reread that portion of the commentary.
Mm-hmm.
It says, portents of death include various physical and psychical phenomena together with visions of supernatural beings.
Mm-hmm. And what does he say just after that?
He says, it is better not to be too explicit here, lest the reader should alarm himself unduly.
Well, so the Swami decided not to say what he knew about it. Because this business of supernatural beings, psychic phenomena and supernatural beings can be, there's clearly some inherent danger there. Otherwise, the Swami would have been more explicit.
Brother Shankara, I have something to say on it. This is Michaeli.
Yes, Michaela.
Everything's thought. So the supernatural beings are still coming from thought, because the reality is there's no two-ness. There's only oneness. So
Well, you keep
the
saying thought. You keep saying thought, Michaela.
yes.
I'd like to correct that. Thought is merely a reflection of consciousness. There is only consciousness. Consciousness reflects itself in the awareness of each individual being and projects, you're right, it projects their universe, but it is consciousness that is universal. And so each of us has our individual thoughts.
Okay, well, let me correct that. And thought is a reflection coming from the consciousness.
Mm-hmm. And so
So
all of these beings are in one way or another part of consciousness.
correct.
And a psychic phenomena is an aspect of consciousness, a rather dangerous one, according to what the Swamis tell us.
Correct. Thank you, Brother Shankara.
So thank you, Michaela, as always.
Brother
But it is
Shankar.
consciousness that is, as Yogeshananda used to say, consciousness is primary and is not plural. Everything that we experience is a reflection of that consciousness and is a lesser reality, as Adi Shankaracharya puts
Yeah,
it.
you're right, Brother Shankara, because in animals, that you don't have to, thought is of a lower frequency. You don't have to connect to an animal and to know what it's thinking. You can watch it and observe it. You don't have to speak to it with your thoughts.
As pleases yourself. There are people who know how to communicate with animals, and it's not done with thoughts precisely, but images. This is what we're told. I know nothing about it personally, but I've read this. Okay.
Brother Shankara, this is Jonathan.
Yes, Jonathan.
Just a very simple comment. The supernatural beings, when I heard that, I thought he was talking about when people who are dying see loved ones, and it's almost like they're in the room with them. I think that's the kind of supernatural beings he may have been talking about.
I don't know, dear. Like I say, I don't know. Well, oftentimes these people see angels and other kinds of beings in the room as well. Some even see demons, and it scares the bejesus out. Um,
I,
so
I,
Well, it's like I have,
oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Robert.
I
you,
have
Johnny.
something. I have something to say on that subject. So since it's saying, I wasn't going to say anything, but supernatural being is a result of supernatural perception, and most people do not have supernatural perceptions, but supernatural perceptions is a result of advanced, very advanced meditation. So you would have to deal with supernatural perceptions before you would even get any place close to supernatural beings.
Okay. Very well said, as always, Robert. Thank you.
I have something to say on Annika's and Robert's comment. This is McKaylee.
Yes.
When you see a loved one at the moment of separation from the physical body, you see an angel or you see a loved one, that is your comforter, because sometimes the fear is so great because the individual is so attached to the physical that the fear is so great it actually needs a comforter to help it, so that it'll envision whatever is comforting to itself. That's my take on it.
This is what we're told by hospice nurses. Yes. I mean, they have written books about it. So if there's nothing else, we'll move on to Sutra 24.
Hearing nothing, I'll proceed.
Okay.
Sutra 24. By making samyama on friendliness, compassion, etc., one develops the powers of these qualities. Repeating 24. By making samyama on friendliness, compassion, etc., one develops the powers of these qualities. The reference here is to Aphorism 33 of chapter 1, and he quotes part of it. Friendliness toward the happy, compassion for the unhappy, delight in the virtuous, end quote. The yogi who masters this samyama has the power of giving joy to everyone he meets and relieving him from pain and care. And that concludes that commentary.
Please read this, the sutra and the commentary again. This is, again, a pointer in a very, very auspicious direction for each spiritual aspirant.
Sutra 24. By making samyama on friendliness, compassion, etc., one develops the powers of these qualities. The reference here is to Aphorism 33 of chapter 1. Quote, friendliness toward the happy, compassion for the unhappy, delight in the virtuous, end quote. The yogi who masters this samyama has the power of giving joy to everyone he meets and relieving him from pain and care.
So the Swami who says, who masters this has this power. They can do this. But even as you work toward this, as you work toward in contemplation, concentration, and meditation, and you hold these thoughts in your mind, you become more and more radiant. And in that radiance, you provide this peace around you. There is this radiance around you. If you want to know what I'm talking about, just come and be in the presence of Swami Sarvadevananda. You will feel it. And it isn't something that happened yesterday. You know, he has been progressing in this direction for as long as I've known him. And this is since 1993. He joined the order 50 years ago. And I've known him for a good bit of that time. When he came, he was a different Swami. He is now, his spiritual practice over all these years has just unfolded and unbound him to where you just feel this radiance in his presence. So, but it's true of every one of us who holds this, that we want to manifest friendliness, compassion. And it is something that, as it goes on, first we manifest friendliness and compassion toward ourselves. We become our own best friends, and we become free of the tyrant mind that is so in love with rigid rules and routines. So we are free of that and are so able to be free with ourselves. Then we are able to be free with others. And it is this spontaneity and fluidity that is a hallmark of the yogi. And so they are able to be auspicious and appropriate in every situation, which, as Swami points out in his commentary, enables them to bring joy and freedom from pain in the lives of others. Any comment or concern or question from anyone?
So,
Yeah, go ahead, Glenn.
do these things fall under the cities that Sri Ramakrishna was telling us it's best not to mess with, or not?
No, not at all. No, those cities, those psychic powers, those 8 occult psychic powers, they are selfish. They are selfish powers. The reason he tells us to avoid them is that they enable you to satisfy the gross and subtle desires of your inner mind and your latent subconscious. And this is where Sri Ramakrishna says those powers are to be avoided. So this has nothing whatsoever to do with that. This is an auspicious. This is these are the qualities of auspiciousness and joy and mercy and love that are a part of the divine presence. And so it definitely does not fall under that category. It's just the opposite of that. This is something devoutly to be desired. And as I say, you start by having love and compassion for yourself. And then having understood that you, though a fallible being, are perfect in the eyes of the Lord, free, or you are free from this, as I said, this tyrant mind, and this false Lord that our left mind is so fond of inventing, this false governor of your actions. And it's always a process. It's not something that happens bada bing, bada boom. It is a process that takes place over, as I said, decades. In the case of Swami Sarvadevananda, I've been watching it happen since he arrived in 1993.
So in the Ramakrishna order, does this happen by itself through practice? Kind of like what they were talking about, you don't really need to mess with the pranayama, that it will take place by itself? Or does he deliberately engage in these practices?
Over time, everything auspicious will result from spiritual practice. It doesn't mean you can't have intentions in the meantime, auspicious intentions and desires, spiritual desires. When Swami Prabhavananda says in his first instruction for meditation, learn to feel that living presence. That living presence contains all of these auspicious aspects of divinity, all of these, the ones that we so desire, to be loved, to be cherished, to be taken care of, and so on. That's why our opening prayer says, may the divine being look over us lovingly as a mother and father. May the divine being support and nourish us as a mother and father. This is what we want. Well, then, as we progress, we manifest these qualities ourselves. Now, as your question, Glenn, does it happen all by itself? Yes, but it'll take longer if you're not intentional about it. This is something that Patanjali pointed out long back in the book. The more intentional you are, and the more you stick to and pursue those intentions, the more rapidly things will happen. So if you wish to be this kind of person in the world, and it certainly does change your relationship with universe, I'll tell you that, then you pursue it actively. You look over your actions and say, where have I been inauspicious, and where have I been auspicious, and how can I? This is the self-study that is in the niyamas. Self-study. Looking at our actions and our thoughts. Everything, as Michaela keeps pointing out to us, everything starts in our thoughts. It's a reflection of consciousness, but it appears to us as our thoughts. So our thoughts then result in our speech and our actions. And if we're holding in our thoughts this desirability to be this kind of person that is talked about in Sutra 24, that ultimately results in mastery, the more quickly it will happen, according to Patanjali and according to Sri Ramakrishna and Vivekananda and all the other teachers we look to. If you want to know more about what I'm talking about, look to Swami Vivekananda's book, Karma Yoga, and how he just talks about intentionality. You do things intentionally, and then the fruits appear because of your intentions. Karma, action. Anything else from anyone? Thank you, Glenn, as always. So we've got plenty of time. If there's nothing more from anyone, then on to 25.
The next two sutras are grouped together, 25 and 26. 25. By making samyama on any kind of strength, such as that of the elephant, one obtains that strength. Repeating 25. By making samyama on any kind of strength, such as that of the elephant, one obtains that strength. Sutra 26. By making samyama on the inner light, one obtains knowledge of what is subtle, hidden, or far distant. Repeating 26. By making samyama on the inner light, one obtains knowledge of what is subtle, hidden, or far distant. A very brief commentary. The inner light is the light of the lotus within the heart, referred to in Aphorism 36 of chapter 1. And that's it.
Now, this strength, he's talking about two different kinds of strength. Patanjali is. These are sutras that add to 7, which is the first fruit of our progression through the numerology. 7 is, this is why it's regarded as such a lucky number. It is the number of good fortune. The auspiciousness has come together, and now we have something. Now, and then he says, make samyama on the strength of an elephant or any other kind of strength, and you gain that strength. And then he says, meditate on the inner light, and everything that is hidden will be revealed. This is a different kind of strength. And so this is why the Swami doesn't need to say much in the way of commentary. So please read those sutras again and the short commentary, Jeff.
Sutra 25, by making samyama on any kind of strength, such as that of the elephant, one obtains that strength. 26, by making samyama on the inner light, one obtains knowledge of what is subtle, hidden, or far distant. The inner light is the light of the lotus within the heart, referred to in Aphorism 36 of chapter 1.
And this is what we come to when we learn to feel the living presence. The living presence may appear to us as a light, or simply this feeling of, this intense feeling of presence, or it can be as a sound or some other kind of image. But this is where the beginning of this revelation of a deeper, different kind of knowledge of the subtle, the hidden, and the far distant has, I think, a couple of meanings, but that's an exploration we won't go into right now. Anything else from anyone before we go on to the culmination, the number, the 27 that adds up to 9, that is the culmination of this series of sutras. Okay, what does 27 say?
The next 3 sutras are grouped together.
Aha.
27, by making samyama on the sun, one gains knowledge of the cosmic spaces. Repeating 27, by making samyama on the sun, one gains knowledge of the cosmic spaces. 28, by making samyama on the moon, one gains knowledge of the arrangement of the stars. Repeating number 28, by making samyama on the moon, one gains knowledge of the arrangement of the stars. And Sutra 29, by making samyama on the pole star, one gains knowledge of the motions of the stars. Repeating 29, by making samyama on the pole star, one gains knowledge of the motions of the stars. And a little paragraph of commentary. It has already been remarked that there is a strong resemblance between the cosmology of Patanjali and the theories of modern atomic physics. Yet the ancient Hindus had, as far as we know, practically no scientific apparatus of any accuracy. This fact alone would seem to offer some proof of the validity of the psychic powers, for how else could these sages have formed such a correct and comprehensive picture of the nature of the universe? Their knowledge cannot have been based, as ours is, simply upon sense perception assisted by instruments. And that concludes the commentary.
Okay. Anything at all from anyone about those? So I'd suggest you read the 3 sutras again. The end of one sequence and the first 2, manifestation of the next series.
I'm sorry, could you say that again, Brother Shankara?
Read 27, 28, and 29, and the commentary.
Certainly. Number 27, by making samyama on the sun, one gains knowledge of the cosmic spaces. 28, By making samyama on the moon, one gains knowledge of the arrangement of the stars. Sutra 29, by making samyama on the pole star, one gains knowledge of the motions of the stars. It has already been remarked that there is a strong resemblance between the cosmology of Patanjali and the theories of modern atomic physics. Yet the ancient Hindus had, as far as we know, practically no scientific apparatus of accuracy. This fact alone would seem to offer some proof of the validity of the psychic powers. For how else could these sages have formed such a correct and comprehensive picture of the nature of the universe? Their knowledge cannot have been based, as ours is, simply upon sense perception assisted by instruments.
And I think that's self-evident. And if you study what is in the Vedic description of universe, it's so remarkable that their year count for what will be the period of manifestation of this cycle that produced this universe, which is between 110 and 114 billion years. I'm sorry, about 110 billion years, of which we are about 14 billion years in only. So there's a lot of universe left to be manifested over this 100. It's so remarkable that, and the Swami could not have known this at the time he said this, but it is true, that when the value of the Higgs boson, that that vibrational field or particle that gives mass to everything, the theoretical physicist who who was part of the discovery of that Higgs boson and its value, he said it's astounding because it gives the Higgs boson gives rise to a universe that becomes ever more anti-entropic, more complex and specialized over a period of billions of years, and then it fades away to essentially absolute zero. And the number that he came up with, the number of billions of years that this would take place, was 110 billion years. And the parallel is exact. And this is not something that I've interpolated. This is, you can look it up.
Well, so I have a concept, or I guess a theory, or whatever you may call it, that there are no accidents in the universe, and that has come to me from years of study and research and practice, and everything that happens, all you have to do is wait some time, and you'll see the reason will come. And the key thing to really be aware of is potential. There is potential. Each one of us here, each person in the face of the earth has the potential of being whatever he or she decides. And the world is full of, it's just forks in the road. You got the potential is there. You make the decision when you come to a fork. And you're gonna come to another one after that. You're gonna come to another one. They're endless.
Yes, and this is this is exactly what Swami Vivekananda was gesturing to when he said each soul is potentially divine. The goal of human life is to manifest this divinity. Now, he's saying that there is you're right, Robert, we're not bound or restricted to that path. But he's saying this is the most auspicious of the paths. If you wish to have freedom and joy, real freedom and joy, you'll pursue the spiritual path to manifest that divinity within by controlling nature, both external and internal. And then he tells us how. But I agree with you entirely, Robert, that there is no such thing as coincidence. Sri Ramakrishna himself speaks of this. He said, everything happens at exactly the right time. Everything happens at exactly the right time, without any variance. Though he says the right time may not seem reasonable because Mother is capricious.
Brother Shankara, this is McKaylee. Can I make a comment on Robert?
Yes, of course.
Robert, when you said a fork in the road, I love that, because that's kind of how what's helping me right now at this particular period in my life is to step back and view that fork in the road. So I step back and I go to the decision maker within my mind, and then I ask for help to perceive it correctly. And it's, to me, it's not, there's no chance encounters because time is an illusion. So it's all happening right now. It's my going to that fork in the road, asking for help, going to the decision maker in my mind, and then my perception perceives that. So it's like a movie that's playing out for me, and that's why there's no chance encounters, because there's no time. So that's all. I just wanted to say that, Robert.
Well said.
Yes.
Well said, Michaela.
Yes.
All accurate.
This is anecdotal, but I've noticed in my own life and learned that when I come to that fork in the road, used to, I would make a decision just because I felt like I had to, and I wouldn't wait for the correct answer. But I've found that if you wait, usually within 48 hours, it will reveal itself to you.
And this, you can see this even in the lives of the saints. Sometimes people would ask Brahmananda a question, and he would say, "Oh, my head is a little achy today, or I have a little indigestion. let me get back to you in a couple of days." And so he would do exactly that. And but then he said to Swami Prabhavananda about this changing his mind. Sometimes after a couple of days, he said, "Do you think I do anything by my own will? Do you think I do anything by my own will?" So it just depends on how we look at it, how free we are from the feeling of being bound and compelled. But I really like what you said, Michaela, and I like what you said, Glenn, and of course, what Robert said, I've already commented on. Anything else from anyone? All right, we've got just a few minutes left. If there's nothing else, then Jeff can read on, and we'll take it up again. What he reads, we'll take it up again to begin next week.
Well, the next three sutras are grouped together, and they're fairly similar, and then there's just one brief commentary. So we might make quick work of it, or we could develop an hour's worth of discussion on just this. We'll just see how it goes. Sutra 30. By making samyama on the navel, one gains knowledge of the constitution of the body. Repeating number 30. By making samyama on the navel, one gains knowledge of the constitution of the body. 31. By making samyama on the hollow of the throat, one stills hunger and thirst. Repeating 31. By making samyama on the hollow of the throat, one stills hunger and thirst. And Sutra 32. By making samyama on the tube within the chest, one acquires absolute motionlessness. Repeating 32. By making samyama on the tube within the chest, one acquires absolute motionlessness. The motionlessness, for example, of the snake or the lizard. This enables the yogi to meditate undisturbed by the involuntary movements of his body. And that concludes the commentary.
All right, any comments or concerns or questions from anyone about any of that?
Brother Shankar, could I
Yes.
see the first page of the book that you are reading? Because I have another one that is not following what you're reading. Can you please show me that page, the book?
Maria, the book that you're holding up looks like the current version that most of us have. We're on page 198.
198, okay.
Chapter 3, which is called Powers. Sutras 30, 31, and 32.
198. Okay.
So I came in kind of late on the book study, and I looked it up, but I don't know where it defines it in this book. But how is Patanjali defining samaya?
Samyama? Oh,
Sam-
it's samyama is the simultaneous. I'm just going to tell you what he says. It is the simultaneous practice of concentration on a particular object and meditation. That is to say, stilling all other thoughts so that you're focused only on that one thing that is the subject of your concentration, the object of your concentration. And he says that the nature of samyama, when you do this, that the inner nature of whatever it is that is the object of your concentration reveals itself to you. So this is the definition of samyama, the simultaneous object-related, and he defines this early on in chapter 1 as in his definition of the various forms of concentration. There's object-related concentration and non-object-related concentration. This samyama is an object-related concentration on a particular item or subject. In this case, the navel, the tube within the chest. These would be the object that you're focusing your concentration on. Meditation, of course, means stilling all other thoughts so that only the one thought that you are focusing on, concentrating on, is manifesting. This is samyama. Very difficult indeed. Most of us can manage a level of concentration, and then we can even get to the edge and begin to practice meditation. But to do the two together and do this samyama, very difficult indeed. And it's one of the things that Swami Prabhupada remarks on, that it's one of the reasons that so few people are able to be exploitive of these psychic powers, because they're not able to do what's necessary to gain access to them. An Aleister Crowley is an example. And in a more positive sense, Edgar Casey, although Edgar Casey did not use it exploitatively, he used it serviceably. he was able to just spontaneously make samyama. So that'll do it for this week.
Well, Chuck, I wanted to point out one other thing before you. What Jeff just read is actually a description of how to develop samyama to get to how to concentrate, because I've found from my experience in trying to concentrate, you first have to be able to define concentration to yourself, to your satisfaction. And once you can define it to yourself completely, then you can find there are the means that he just read is a description of how to do it.
Yes, well, he's been.
But it doesn't say that. And I think that's why I spoke up, because it doesn't say that that's what it is. But that's what it is. It's a description, A to Z, of how to develop samyama.
Okay. Well said. These are 3 examples, yes. The navel, the hollow of the throat, and the tube of the chest.
The chakras.
Well, that's you've made the connection, yes.
So would meditating on a flame, like an elemental type, is that the beginning of how to do it?
Well, that's how I started. Even before I took the Maharishi's mantra, I was practicing meditating on a still flame, and had some remarkable experiences as a result.
That's how I started as well. Matter of fact, I still do it. I use a crystal, but I use a crystal because I use a crystal along with the flame. Because concentrating on the flame directly is more a physical thing, but if you concentrate on the reflection of the flame through the crystal, it takes the physicalness out of it. Now it is into the vein that you really want to get into, because it's not logical.
Well,
you got
now you've described to us why crystal balls work.
yeah. It's not a physical. It's a reflection.
Oh yes.
And a thought is a reflection.
All right.
Those reflections that's where you want to get to, into the reflections.
Right.
Not into the tangible physical things. Because when you get into the tangible physical thing, now you're getting into the scientific point of view of it.
Yeah.
And that will lead you astray to some degree sometimes.
At least it'll be like trying to empty the ocean of consciousness with a teaspoon. So I need to ring off, dears. I have something else I need to do. So I'm going to sign off. So good to have been with you as always. Jai Shri Guru Maharaj Ji Ki Jai, Durga Durga Durga. May we be safe. May we be healthy. May we be cheerful. May we have peace of mind. And may we know we are always in the loving and protective embrace of the Divine Being as our Mother and Father. Jai, Jai, Jai. The Divine Being as our Mother and Father. So I'm going to sign off now. And until tomorrow evening at 8 o'clock, when we hear Swami Sarvadevananda speak, if you can come to the chapel, please do. Otherwise, join us on Zoom tomorrow evening at 8 o'clock. No 11 o'clock talk. Until then, Jai Ma.